I've talked about this before. It's worth talking about again in a new context. Following the rules benefits the rule followers. So, for example, in our judiciary or our judicial system, we have jurists who take their time to consider the legality or the constitutionality of somebody's actions. So, to use a real life example, Donald and his administration disappear somebody off the streets of America and have them incarcerated illegally, unconstitutionally, either in a prison far from their home, like Louisiana, for example, or in a gulag in another country. The damage has been done. So the court's job is to decide whether or not the United States government had the right, had the authority to commit such an act. Well, how long does it take for them to make that decision? Weeks, months. In the meantime, the Trump regime continues to detain illegally more people, to disappear them, to incarcerate them. Plus, of course, they appeal. If a judge says, no, you're not allowed to do that, the Trump regime appeals that decision, or I should say the Trump DOJ appeals that decision. And meanwhile, the potentially innocent person continues to be incarcerated illegally, unconstitutionally. We have the same issue when it comes to the ways in which Congress works. Donald started saber rattling about Iran shortly after Benjamin Netanyahu's government started bombing nuclear facilities in Iran. So some members in the Senate decided that they needed to intervene and make sure that Donald did not unilaterally engage in a conflict with Iran. And while they took the time to do that, Donald engaged in a conflict with Iran by ordering an illegal, unconstitutional missile strike against Iran in contravention of international law. Because it takes so much time to make sure you're doing the right thing. We can look at that same issue in the context of diplomacy. Again, while Donald was threatening and delaying and threatening and hedging, the international community was trying to put in place a diplomatic solution to the situation between Israel and Iran. Well, while that was being hammered out, while that was being negotiated, Donald illegally, unconstitutionally ordered the missile strikes against Iran. I think it is worth remembering that the damage being done while people acting in good faith try to do the right thing is incalculable. Donald Trump, by refusing to care what the right thing is, by refusing to pay attention to things like diplomacy and statecraft and the law and the Constitution, is doing untold damage to individual lives, to this country, to the international community. So I don't have a solution to this problem, except to say that we do ourselves no favors by giving people like Donald or regimes like the Trump regime the benefit of the doubt ever. Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's episode of Marriage Up Live. It is wonderful to be here with you. Another one of those days, eh? So after Donald's reckless, irresponsible, and illegal decision to strike Iran's nuclear facilities, Iran fired back literally. Today, the country launched multiple missiles at the U.S. base in Qatar or Qatar, depending on your preference. Bloomberg obtained footage of the missiles, which were intercepted by Qatari air defenses with no injuries or deaths reported, thankfully. Take a look. Still, Iran acted swiftly on its promise to strike back at the United States, adding to tensions in this country. This aggression, this unilateral assault by Donald Trump is extremely unpopular, even among MAGA diehards. On Friday, podcaster Theo Vaughn, had Democratic Representative Ro Khanna on his show this past weekend. Why? Like, that seems unlikely. The reason is Vaughn wanted to give Khanna the opportunity to promote his proposed bill to prevent Donald from launching an unauthorized attack. Vaughn is one of the right-wing podcaster hosts who had Donald on his show during his campaign, helping him appeal to the young male voter bloc. And even he took a hard stance against Donald's getting involved in the Israel-Iran conflict. Watch this clip.
Do you know anyone, Theo, in your life who's like, yeah, we should go out and go to war with Iran? Like any of the folks you talk
nobody.
to?
Nobody. You know? Even like hardhead, like even guys who like former Navy SEAL, no, none of them. Nobody is saying yes. And I felt like the biggest thing there's so many things right now, and it's like that I feel like in the world that are kind of stressing people and making people nervous. But one of the things is I felt like it was supposed to be America first. Like we're focusing on like, what are we doing to get things back into America, right?
Exactly.
To like increase like the purpose of being an American, to refill like our hearts with blood and like and make us feel something again here and make us be excited about being an American, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like that was what a lot of the energy was for. And then now that we're caught up here and it feels like we are just working for Israel, I think to a lot of people, it's, I don't know, you just really start to feel very disillusioned pretty quickly. And
it won't surprise you that I have some problems with the way this is being framed by that podcaster. However, the point here is that Donald lied to the people he most needs, his base. So, as Iran pledges more retaliation, the Trump regime is trying to spin Donald's illegal war as part of some brilliant strategy. But we know that this war is happening because Donald is erratic, he's insecure, and he is desperate to appear strong. Because, especially over the last couple of weeks, his humiliations have been almost incessant, and they are compounding. So I want to get back again to this whole America First thing. Now, you and I will most likely disagree with that premise. I think an America that's isolationist is an America that doubles down on the idea of ignorance and white supremacy and cedes a lot of its power to do good in the world, of course. However, and this is an odd position for me to be in, I absolutely agree. I mean, my reasons for believing this may be very different from those of MAGA adherents like Vaughn and others, but no president should engage in an illegal, unconstitutional war that could potentially plunge this country into chaos that endangers American national security and endangers American lives here and abroad. It is that simple. As if things couldn't get worse, Donald's social media use may be a major liability in this chosen unilateral conflict with Iran. News reports are surfacing that Donald's use of social media may have seriously compromised the secrecy and success of the Iran strike because he is so thirsty, he is so desperate for a win that he had to let everybody know what he had done, as if he himself had dropped those bombs. In the days leading up to the operation, Donald repeatedly posted inflammatory messages on his failing social media site, urging civilians to evacuate Tehran and teasing, quote unquote, something much bigger than a ceasefire, which many inside the Pentagon believed gave Iran advanced warning. According to the New York Times, Donald had already made up his mind to attack, but falsely claimed he would take 2 weeks to decide. A deliberate misdirection read by military planners as damage control for his own operational leaks. I don't know if I agree with that. However, I do believe that his social media posts were essentially showing his cards. It was stupid, it was irresponsible, and it was the opposite of strategic. To mitigate the fallout, the Pentagon devised a deception involving decoy B-2 bombers flying west to draw attention away from the real strike team that was headed east. But by then, it may have been too late. So just let's mark this. The Pentagon devised a strategy that Donald had nothing to do with in order to deflect from his appalling lack of responsibility in giving away the game. As the Daily Beast reported, Iran moved up to 880 pounds of near weapons grade uranium, enough for nearly a dozen nuclear bombs from key sites before the U.S. strikes. This gaffe was later further supported by Vice President J.D. Vance, who suggested that talks with Iran to destroy that uranium would be a focus in the future. Israeli and IAEA sources backed that possibility, pointing to truck activity at the Isfahan nuclear facility in the days before the bombing. While the Trump regime publicly claimed the mission had obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities, internal statements and outside intelligence suggest that Donald's impulsive online behavior may have tipped Tehran and blunted the mission's effectiveness. Because, of course, it did. He doesn't care about Iran's nuclear capabilities. If he did, he would never had pulled the United States out of the JCPOA, also known as the Iran nuclear deal. What he needed here was to change the subject so that he could look like a tough guy. He needed the world to know that he was doing something. Well, guess what? Iran then knew that he was doing something, and Iran acted accordingly, making these missile strikes incredibly ineffective in a way they may not have otherwise have been, and in the process, endangering all of our troops on the ground in the Middle East in close proximity to Iran and American citizens who are in Iran. So obviously, this situation between America and Iran and Israel and America and Iran has been the primary focus of the news cycle this week. But we cannot look away from all of the other things the Trump regime is trying to get away with, and in some cases is getting away with. Donald's horrific immigration battles continue in the courts. So we have several updates in the Kilmar Abrego Garcia case. A judge has ordered Abrego Garcia's release pending his trial, which is a small win in a case that continues to cause judicial debate. So let's take a look at MSNBC's coverage.
A federal judge has ordered Kilmar Abrego Garcia to be released while he awaits trial for human smuggling charges. Abrego Garcia is the Maryland father mistakenly deported to a mega prison in El Salvador. The Trump administration has already filed a motion asking the judge to reconsider. And despite today's ruling, he's not expected to go free because prosecutors previously said ICE would take him into custody if he were to be released. There's a hearing on Wednesday to discuss the conditions of his release.
This ruling is a clear sign of resistance to Donald Trump's DOJ and the regime's goals, with the judge making it clear that so far, the DOJ, Donald and his DOJ, have denied Abrego Garcia his right to due process. As stated, the Trump regime filed an appeal, but did so with a U.S. district judge, as the current judge ruling was a magistrate judge, amplifying the appeals process to the next court level. And again, this is what I was talking about earlier. Delay, 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 delay. When does justice happen? And during all of this time in which we are trying to get justice for people like Abrego Garcia, Donald and the Trump regime and his DOJ continue to do whatever they want. Along with releasing Abrego Garcia, the judge made it clear that the Trump DOJ was acting in bad faith. White House advisor Stephen Miller, who's been fiercely against Abrego Garcia's release, which shouldn't surprise us because he's a Nazi, and others in the executive branch were completely embarrassed in her ruling. Judge Holmes slammed government evidence that Garcia is a member of MS-13, saying it, quote, consists of general statements, all double hearsay, unquote, and stated that Abrego Garcia, quote, has no criminal history, unquote, of any kind. She also pointedly added to her opinion the following, quote, Abrego, like every person arrested on federal criminal charges, is entitled to a full and fair determination of whether he must remain in federal custody pending trial, unquote. There's no better way to put this, but in further devastating immigration news, the Supreme Court today allowed the Trump regime to resume deporting certain immigrants to third countries with which the United States has removal agreements, even if those individuals have no prior connection to those countries. In a brief, unsigned order with no explanation, the court put on hold a lower court ruling that had required the administration to give affected individuals a quote unquote meaningful opportunity to argue that they would face face torture, persecution, or death if deported. As a result, the administration can move forward with removals to countries like South Sudan, though individuals can still attempt to raise those claims on a case-by-case basis. Trina Realmuto, executive director of the National Immigration Litigation Alliance, said, quote, the ramifications of the Supreme Court's order will be horrifying. It strips away critical due process protections that have been protecting our class members from torture and death, unquote. I guess it is small comfort that the court's 3 liberal justices dissented, but they're writing for history. Their opinions don't matter here, at least in practical terms. Once again, the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court is paying no attention to precedent and, quite frankly, is ignoring the Constitution, the very document they are supposed to defend and uphold. This is extraordinarily unsettling because denying any person in this country, citizen or not, criminal or not, the right to due process suggests that this constitutional right afforded to every human being on the planet who is on American soil is at risk for everybody. The right to due process, to habeas corpus, cannot be conditional, and yet the Supreme Court just ruled that it was. Luckily, Democrats are standing up for our legal system. Senate Democrats just forced a major win through Donald's big abominable bill. Democrats in the Senate forced the removal of a provision in that bill that would restrict the power of courts to block federal government policies with injunctions or restraining orders. The provision would have required anyone suing the government or Donald or anybody in his regime to pay a fee that would be equal to, quote, the costs and damages sustained by the federal government, unquote, if it were ultimately to win the case. Legal experts said this provision, if successful, would be a major, major loss to our fair and free legal system. But Democrats knew how dangerous it would be and sought out a little known rule to stop it. Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough, the in-house referee who is nonpartisan, ruled the provision did not comply with the so-called Byrd rule, which says provisions must be directly related to taxes or spending, which was brought to her attention after Democrats asked for a review. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer said in a statement, quote, Senate Republicans tried to write Donald's contempt for the courts into law. It was nothing short of an assault on the system of checks and balances that has anchored this nation since its founding and a brazen attempt to crown Donald King. But Senate Democrats stopped them cold, unquote. Yeah, that's what Republicans in Congress want to do. They continue to cede their constitutional authority to Donald and hence the executive branch, making this perhaps the most powerful executive branch in American history. So the fact that the Democrats were able to stop them on this instance is important because what the Republicans were trying to do was to include things in a bill about the budget that had nothing to do with the budget and claim that they did not need the 60 vote majority in order to pass it. They could do so through a process called reconciliation, which required only a simple majority, which Senate Republicans have. So this is a win. But despite that, Republicans continue to make it clear through their legislation that they don't care about our country or its inhabitants. Florida Congresswoman Kat Cammack says she almost died last year from an ectopic pregnancy after doctors hesitated to treat her. Why? Because they feared criminal charges under Florida's 6-week abortion ban. Despite being just 5 weeks pregnant and facing a life-threatening emergency, Cammack was forced to plead with hospital staff, cite state law from her phone, and even attempt to reach Governor DeSantis before receiving care. She finally persuaded staff to give her methotrexate to expel the pregnancy. That is what women all over this country are dealing with in red states now. So imagine being in that situation and not having that power and not having those connections and not having that knowledge. Unfortunately, despite her experience, Cammack is still defending the law, blaming quote unquote Democrat fear mongering. It is an adjective, you idiot, for the confusion, not the policy itself. And saying that what she had was not an abortion, but it was. Abortion is healthcare. Abortion is simply when a pregnancy that is unviable or unwanted is ended. It is that simple. It's lawmakers like Cammack who've backed doctors into a corner, having to weigh saving lives against risking prosecution. It's people like Cammack who continue to allow the lives of women in this country to be endangered for no reason whatsoever except the depraved misogyny and religious zealotry of lawmakers. I think we are past the point where we can accept that kind of person to have power because She clearly believes that abortion should be legal in certain cases as long as it's to save her. That seems like the perfect encapsulation of what the Republican Party has become. They want rights. They don't want the rest of us to have any. So, happy Monday. I do have some breaking news before we get to our emotional support moment, which we really need. Because, bombing, nuclear, stuff like that. Okay. I don't know if you had heard this, but Donald announced that there was a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Congratulations to everyone. It's been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now. Blah, 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 blah. Right. And of course, in that post, he had to remind us that he's president of the United States. Cool. Guess what? There is no confirmation. Donald announced a ceasefire despite moments, even though moments before, Iranian officials said there was not one. And now he's saying, oh, no, there was no confirmation. I guess he's just listening to the voices in his head again. Because he doesn't listen to anybody else. So, yeah, so there's no ceasefire. And I'm sorry to say that it's hard for me to imagine that there will be anytime soon because none of the work in order to make that happen is being done by the people who started this conflict in the first place. All right. Let's do this thing. For today's emotional support moment, as always, we start off with a deep cleansing breath. Inhale. Let's do yoga breath. Inhale through your nose. This actually, it's half a yoga breath. You inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. And honestly, it sometimes helps to make your exhalation loud, right? I think it's called ocean breathing or something. So breathe in through your nose like that, right? I'm telling you, it actually, you know why, just a quick aside, when you're at the, in line at the grocery store and the person in front of you, like you're on the 10 items or less checkout and the person in front of you has like 37 items and, you're a little frustrated and then their credit card doesn't work, whatever it is. And, you're not like really upset about it, but you're feeling a little bit stressed and you sigh loudly. Makes you feel better, right? Yeah. And it also like lets the person in front of you know, not cool. Okay. So we're going to take another look at some of the amazing sights of Australia's Great Barrier Reef, which reminds me, these always reminds me that one of my goals in life is to learn how to scuba dive. So I'm going to think about that while I'm watching this. Breathe and enjoy. Just amazing. So yeah, I want to do that one of those. I'm not really thrilled about the whole great white shark thing down there, but I'd risk it. I'd have to do a lot of yoga breathing ahead of time though. All right. Let's get to your questions, comments, etc. We have a new member, John. Welcome. It is great to have you here. And another one, Lissa. Thank you so much. And welcome. Twisted Rainbow. Thank you so much for that. Comment, my cousin is in Iraq. Yeah. Yes. There are people, human beings in Iraq who... Wait, Iraq or Iran? Wait, hold on. Okay, I'm not... Sorry. I've been talking about Iran so much that I missed that and I conflated the two. So I don't know if that's if I would imagine that fears in the region are heightened. It is not just limited to Iran. So basically anybody in that part of the world must be under enormous amounts of stress. And I think it's always very important, especially, for Americans now. I think we should be able to relate to this. It is so important always to separate the citizens of a country from the regime of a country, right? Israel is not Netanyahu. Iran is not the repressive extremist regime there. America is not Donald Trump and the fascist Republican Party, right? Or I should say the people of those countries. We cannot equate them with their governments. We cannot. Dorothy, thank you so much, Dorothy. Comment, that man needs to be put in a straitjacket now. Well, yeah, if only. If only. I would give a lot to know what people in his inner circle actually say about him and his behavior privately when he is not in earshot. Regina, thank you so much as always. Comment, keep the kitties cool fee. Yes, indeed. Thank you for reminding me as well. I mean, those of you who are in these places know there is quite a heat wave going on in parts of this country. I think the Midwest and the Northeast. I'm in New York City. It was really hot today, but I grew up here, so I'm kind of used to it. It feels like August, basically. But it's going to get worse. So just a reminder, hydrate more than you normally would. Stay inside whenever you can. Try not to overload the AC, because then we don't want to cause any brownouts or blackouts. And if you work at a store or a shop or whatever, keep water handy for customers, for puppies, cats, if people are out walking their cats, but don't do that. Or keep a water bowl outside, and just be mindful that for the next couple of days, it's perfectly fine to do as little as humanly possible. I think it's going to be about 100 and something 5 or something degrees here, at least the heat index. So if I can avoid it, I'm not going to go outside. But again, I don't mind this kind of heat. It's not that humid here, so that makes a huge difference. It is not a dry heat though, that's for sure. Want to beam up? Wow, want to beam up? That's awesome. Thank you so much. Gifted 5 Mary Trump Media memberships. Fabulous. Very generous of you. Beans, thank you so much, Beans. Comment, wanted to share some good news. Move over, Donald. I've been officially adopted by a beautiful all-black feral cat. After working with him for a year, we named him Binks. He's now family. That is fabulous news. Congratulations. I'm telling you, there is nothing quite like being chosen by a cat. It really is one of the best experiences ever. So, congratulations to you. Congratulations to Binks. You're all very lucky. Joanne, a super sticker. Thank you so much, Joanne. That's really generous of you. We so appreciate it. Jeff, super sticker. Wow, Jeff, thank you. That is awesome. Thank you very, very much. Douglas, thank you, Douglas. That's fantastic. Question. Do you think Donald bombed Iran because people were calling him Taco, which for those of you who don't know, stands for Donald always chickens out. The D is silent. Remember? Yeah. Yep. That's a big part of why. Because that's who he is, and that's where we are. We are the person in charge is that pathetic. Melinda, welcome, new member. It's great to have you here. And Margie, another new member. Welcome to you. Rock and Steady, thank you so very much. Comment, I miss Clinton, Obama, and Biden. Kamala Harris would have been a fantastic president as well. Here's a donation to assist in sending the gopher from Canishata to the golf course at Mar-a-Lago. I love that idea. I have a feeling that the gopher in Caddyshack is probably retired and wouldn't mind a little, side job. Perfect. Let's make that happen. Yeah, I had to be honest. I think any other president would have been better than this, and that is kind of a depressing thing to have to say, but certainly any Democratic president would have been. And certainly a Hillary Clinton would have been, and Al Gore, we could go on and on, but let's not depress ourselves too much. Suki56, thank you as always. That is awesome. Comment, Donald states everything is 2 weeks. That line is from Total Recall, starring Arnold from Terminator. Just saying. Yeah, listen, I guess he workshopped it. He thought it worked, just like he's now at the end of practically every post now, he's saying, thank you for your attention in this matter, which is insane. It's insane. But that's what he does. And for whatever reason, people like it. Jeff, super sticker. Jeff, that's fantastic. Thank you. Really appreciate you're doing that. That is very generous of you. Steven, comment. Today's my 74th birthday. Steven, have an amazing birthday. That is, that's great. And I hope you are doing something to celebrate that occasion because that is awesome. Happy birthday. Ashley, thank you so very much, Ashley. Comment, off topic, but I am very sad that the NASA rover's social media pages are being archived due to NASA's streamlining. I love the perseverance and curiosity updates. Nothing's off topic, honestly, because that is a function of the government we currently have. Nothing means anything to them. Nothing matters to them. And that is a deeply sad commentary on where we are as a country and how little they value science and learning, and how these people cannot appreciate, like, our emotional support moments. For the most part, it's nature, it's animals, it's space. That's stuff that moves us. That's the stuff that keeps us going and that makes us feel better about ourselves and humanity. And they cannot take joy in any of it. And that is tragic. And it's tragic for all of us, actually. So I am with you. Jana, member for a month. Thank you so much, Jana. Let's go Mets. Comment, thank you for the religion video earlier. Also, every day is Monday now. Yeah, well, you're welcome. And for those of you who haven't seen it yet, we dropped a video earlier today about Donald's exploitation of religion and his my family history in terms of its approach to religion or lack thereof. So I urge you to check it out. I personally, I think it's really interesting. And it's another sad commentary on where we are as a country. So check that out. So thank you, Jenna. Jackie, comment, Stephen Miller and Stephen Chung are Austin Powers joke reject characters. Yeah, who also happen to be Nazis who have, especially Stephen Miller, he has an enormous amount of power in this regime. And it's terrifying because he is one of the most vile people who's ever lived. Akenred74 super sticker. Thank you so very much for that. Jeff, comment, question. Mary, is there an email that I can send a message to? Thanks, JB. Yes. Info at marytrumpmedia.com. Say it again. Info at marytrumpmedia.com. So please, because we look at all the emails. Susan, comment. Remember who is running the show? The Heritage Foundation, Stephen Miller, Curtis Yarvin, to name a few. They are the cult behind the scenes and are part of Donald's cabinet. Donald is their jackpot. Yeah, absolutely. Because Donald does not craft policy. He doesn't understand policy. He doesn't care about policy. These guys, these institutions are the ones making all of this happen. And Donald is just a figurehead at this point. Maria comments, SCOTUS is completely corrupt and useless to a whole democracy. It's 100% fascist. Yeah, those 6 corrupt, illegitimate members of the supermajority are corrupt and fascist. And maybe it's long past time Democrats started taking the composition of the Supreme Court seriously. And maybe Joe Biden should have expanded the court when he had the chance. Conversation for another time, but, something that's got to happen. Champagne Hand, question. Has anyone tried warding Miller off with garlic and sunlight? No, but maybe somebody should. Although, sadly, I don't think that's going to do the trick. And Wizard of Frobos, new member. Welcome so much for doing that, for being here. We're happy to have all of our new members. It's great. This new community is growing, so we appreciate all of that. And of course, we appreciate everybody who's watching on YouTube, who's streaming on Twitter, and my Substack, The Good in Us, to everybody listening to the podcast, to all of our new members. Again, welcome. We really, truly appreciate you guys, all of our awesome super stickers, everybody giving us gifts. Cannot thank you enough. Of course, always our moderators who just do this because they care. And that means a tremendous amount. And to my amazing team, once again, for having to start the week under quite stressful and extraordinary conditions. I'm telling you, it is a lot to deal with. And these guys do it so incredibly well. They make it look easy, and I trust me, it is not. So thanks, team. All right, that does it for us. We will be back tomorrow night. Remember, Mary Trump Live is Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Also, tomorrow, Nerd Avengers Day, 3 p.m. Eastern. And again, every single day, we have pre-recorded videos dropping. The easiest way to support us is just subscribe to our channel. It's free. Another really important thing to do is watch those videos, like them, share them, comment on them. That helps us tremendously. And don't forget, there are now paid YouTube memberships that just give you extras. So you can check those out on the homepage. Okay, so that does it for us. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you tomorrow night. Sorry, I will see you tomorrow afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern with the nerds. In the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind.